not really knowing anything about tournament archery in general, I knew that I wanted to be a good archer. I had no idea that getting into this 3D thing was going to make me want to go to tournaments and be a tournament archer. And after running in with Benny and Cooper, they told me a lot about the tournaments that they've been attending for the last few years. And that's pretty darn cool. I mean, traveling to 3D tournaments and having chances to win a lot of money. Well, heck, I'm down for a challenge. So the more serious I got into it, I actually started watching YouTube videos, and that's when Bow Junkie first came out, and I was seeing these names, these really big names in archery, and learning, you know, their techniques, and I was basing my shot off their techniques, and I was realizing a few things that needed to change for me if I was planning on being successful. But I didn't have no money, and I'd already asked my parents for way too much. I messaged a guy by the name of Tim Gillingham on Facebook. And Tim said, I'll meet you in Bedford at the first leg of the IBO, which is the National Triple Crown event that was hosted in here at Bedford, Indiana, which is 15 minutes from my house. I went and met Tim Gillingham on the practice range, and me and Tim proceeded to shoot 20 targets together on the defense range. I shot ridiculously good. 265 foot a second, a big black dot, a small little peep. And Tim kind of looked over my setup and was like, this is what you done that with? And I'm like, yeah, man. He goes, well, heck, if you can shoot this well here, why don't you come be on my IBO team? You're already shooting a Hoyt. And my team is Tim Gillingham, Dan McCarthy, Danny Evans, and Chance Bobeth was going to be their fourth guy, but they wanted a Hoyt team. I'm shooting a Hoyt. Tim just watched me shoot the practice range, and I shot pretty good. I'm the fourth guy. And I'm about to enter my first professional tournament, and I don't even know how to fletch an arrow. And I had Tim fooled. But the great thing about Tim Gillingham, if you don't know him, is he believes in everybody, and he believes that everybody can be the best that they can be, and that's why he works so stinking hard at what he does. So I actually went home, told my parents, and they're like, you know, Joby, that's a lot of money. How in the world are you going to afford that, for one, and how do you plan on getting to these tournaments? Like, how are you going to do this? And I'm like, I don't know. And Gillingham actually paid my first entry fee. Went, and it was $305 plus whoever sponsored the team that was put together, that was paid for. I didn't have to pay any money. Gillingham paid $305 out of his own pocket for a boy that he never met, for somebody he had no idea, out of his own heart, which speaks a huge abundance of respect for Tim Gillingham. And that's why I've always really liked Tim Gillingham. That's why I will and will always continue to go to Tim no matter where my archery career went. Tim was actually my first sponsor also with Gold Tip and Bee Stinger. He did not give me anything. He made me pay for stuff and made me earn my spot on Gold Tip. After knowing that I was going to be a pro, and we had went and Tim had paid my entry fee that evening, and the next morning, I was going to be a professional archer. And I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I know when I draw my bow back and I put my bow on a spot, I just pull the trigger whenever it's close, it hits there. That's the only thing I knew. And judging distance, well, wasn't that great at it, but I put a lot of effort into it. And I didn't put this in the last video because I wanted to put it in it right now, but I was actually going to this club and putting out my own 3D targets, shooting them, then putting them up all by hand. I was going to Mark's 3D archery several days a week, whether there was a foot of snow on the ground. I don't care if it was an ice storm. I shot every single day at 3D Animals, and I didn't have any. And I put in the work that it took to get pretty good at judging distance. So was I good at judging distance going into this tournament? Yeah, I felt that I was physically capable, but my equipment, for one, wasn't set up to even think about shooting well. And I just didn't have the experience. And I can tell you right now, there's a ton of good shooters that'll come into this class, and they will not survive very long, because holding it together mentally is huge in tournaments. It's so huge, and it almost needs to be like me turning the key forward on this four-wheeler and starting it and driving it and knowing where to drive. And that's exactly what kind of cruise control that you have to put yourself in to perform at these tournaments. And if you don't know how far they are, unfortunately, it don't matter how good you are, you're not going to hit the ring. It comes from experience, game planning, and then ultimately hitting the ring with sometimes not even knowing how far it is. So I get to this tournament. I think it's a Saturday morning. And Saturday morning, I'm sitting out front. I was sitting by Benny and Cooper both, because they're the only people that I knew there. And I was looking for Tim, and Tim was nowhere to be found. If anybody knows Tim, he probably showed up late and was at the practice bag still practicing when they were calling names. Because Tim's a very, very passionate, very hard worker. He also feels like he has to procrastinate at the same time, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And they called the stake that I was on. It was Joby Shaw, Lauren Robinson, and Levi Morgan. And I was like, did you guys hear that? I'm shooting with Levi. And I instantly was nervous. I was like, I have to shoot with Levi Morgan. And I sat there for a few minutes. Somebody said, Joby, you need to go in the woods. Your name was called. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. You know, I'm new. I thought that I was shooting with Tim Gillingham, Dan McCarthy, and Danny Evans. I thought we was on a team. As far as I knew, that's who I was shooting with. So I walk down the woods, I find Levi, and I walk up, and I'm pretty sure from the first moment that I saw Levi and talked to him, he's like, holy smokes, this guy's an idiot. And to this day, he probably still thinks the same thing. But I'm going to go over this tournament in a little bit of detail with you, and I mean just minor stuff that happened. And I actually, on my first target, I got up and I loaded my bow really quick, drew my bow back. It was a 42-yard target. I actually had 42 on it. I had the right number. Drew back and I was like, uh-oh, and I instantly let down. I drew back again and instantly let down. Levi was like, whoa, like, what, you can't, you gotta, there's a certain amount of draws that you have. And I was like, oh. He goes, what's wrong? And I'm like, I can't see it. He goes, what do you mean you can't see it? I'm like, I cannot see the target. And he like looks at my setup and he's like, no wonder you can't see it. He goes, here, let me hold my hat over the light and we'll see if we can get a little less light gathered to your peep, so you'll be able to see through it a little better, because there's too much light coming into your peep. And I drew back and I was looking at it and I saw the white tusk on the target. And I was coming back from there and getting ready to come down, and the bow went off. And I shot it into the hillside. And I was like, okay, that's okay. That's okay. That's fine. And I proceeded to shoot really bad. And I shot a 54-yard target in the back, which caused Levi to shoot a 5. low, which made him lose the tournament. Yeah. Then I shot another 52-yard target in the back. It made him shoot an 8 low. He was not very happy, to say the least. So after my first day of shooting, Tim Gillingham was like, what happened? Like, you shot 60-something down. Like, how do you go from shooting as good as you was to shooting 60 down? Like, what exactly happened? And I was like, I don't know. He goes, had to be your sighting system, the way you're looking, because it was really bad. I had a huge black dot on a high power lens with a very small peep. Just wasn't a good combination for shooting 3D animals that I needed to precisely aim at. So Tim actually said, be here early tomorrow morning and we'll get this fixed as good as we can. I was like, okay. So I showed up at 6:30 in the morning, maybe 6 o'clock. It was like dark still when I showed up. Tim went out of his way, got up several hours early, met me at the range the next morning. And when Lancaster opened, I think they opened at 6 a.m., 6 or 7. We waited for Lancaster to open, and Tim went and got a pack of dots. And he got me a new peep sight. He puts me a new specialty peep in with an aperture and put me a lot smaller dot so I could really finally aim at something. And they didn't pierce the second day. So I had to shoot with him again. And he was instantly not talking to me from the moment that I got there that morning. And I walk all the way down over the hill. And I get to my stake. Levi says, only very few words. He says, where's your cards at? We need to draw for rotation. And I was like, cards? Didn't I turn them in yesterday? He's like, yeah, but they gave them back to you. Without thinking, I ran like a half a mile back to my truck. Without thinking, without looking, I got all the way to my truck and realized they were in my chair. My chair was sitting where I was standing. I ran all the way back, reached in my chair, and handed Levi my cards. And he looks at me and says, okay, that's it. He asked me where my cards were, and he said, okay. And from that moment on to the end of the day, I don't think Levi said a word to me. Not a word. And what's funny is even though I shot 110 down in that tournament, I was so driven that it didn't matter at that point. There's a few things that went into this score of 110 down that a lot of people don't know. And yeah, it's 110 down. That's what I shot. But being the new guy that I was, I actually misset my sight on 3 separate occasions for zeros. And plucked 2 arrows out too far where I couldn't grab them. So wiped 60 points off of that. And realistically, it went a lot better than I would have ever expected it to go with the experience that I had. Now my goal was actually 10 down for that tournament. That was my goal, was a 390. I didn't realize that it was going to take 13 up to win the tournament. And what's funny is the guy that actually won the tournament was the one that replaced me in that team that I was on. I was down about it, but I actually went to shoots on the next 2 or 3 weekends and shot crazy good. Like, I was hitting a lot of rings with that very slow bow, and I was judging a lot more yardage than I ever had. And realistically, it felt a lot easier now that I had experienced the pressure of everything that being a professional had to offer. And then in all honesty, I wasn't even close to being a professional. That brings us to the second leg of the National Triple Crown. And Gillingham and me were talking a lot at this point, and he really felt that I had the opportunity to be good. So Tim actually said, hey, I got a bow that would be perfect for you. I can't give it to you, but I will charge you a little bit of money for it. Charged me hardly no money for it, $300-400 for a bow, and said, I'm gonna send it to you ASAP. I want you practicing with it, and I want you to show up early to the second leg of the IBO, and we're gonna get this thing set up so you can do what you need to do with what you got. And I'm gonna cut this video off here, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I can't wait to continue to tell the story. God bless and have a great day. I'll see you later.